can't tell you how many times I would leave a casino and say, I'm never doing this again. I will never do this again. And that night, like a moth to a flame, my car on autopilot would turn into a casino and I would start all over again. Some people don't accept that compulsive gambling is an illness and see it as a cop-out. So by sharing my story and my experience and strength and hope, I'm hopeful that it makes a difference to people. It starts out as fun, it's recreational, it's entertainment, and somewhere along the line, there's an invisible line that any compulsive gambler will tell you they cross. It's no longer fun. It's not a game. It's not entertaining. It's a horrific compulsion. It's a vicious cycle. It's shameful. It's secretive. It's isolating. And it's the most painful thing I've ever experienced. I realized I needed help when all aspects of my life were impacted by my gambling. I was physically exhausted, emotionally exhausted, spiritually bankrupt. I had lies and secrets, and I knew I was a compulsive gambler before I admitted I was a compulsive gambler. And like most people, probably not really most, every person I've spoken with that was in my same shoes that's gone from compulsive gambling to recovery, there comes a moment when we can no longer keep up the charade. And people who are compulsive gamblers come into treatment or admit defeat only when we're out of money and out of resources. The addiction is not an addiction to money. It's the adrenaline rush, the endorphins and dopamine that's released in our body. It's definitely not fun. And by the time we get help, we have no more options. We cannot pawn one more piece of jewelry. We cannot steal one more penny from our family's bank accounts, from our own funds. When we're out of resources, it brings us to our knees. And finally, some of us get help. There are self-help groups such as Gamblers Anonymous. There's private counseling. And for the family, there's Gam-Anon and counseling. And I would say that I always use the expression that we're messy. Problem gamblers, compulsive gamblers are messy. Our decisions, or our brain's decision, our disease decisions, don't only affect us. It impacts our family. If we have children, time away from them. It impacts our spouses because we've broken trust. And they need help and they need to understand. And the saddest thing is when I hear a spouse or a family member, they feel so betrayed. And for the gambler, there's a great deal of shame. For the spouse, the family members, there's pain, there's anger, and it's understandable. And the family needs help as much as the addicted gambler. And for the family also to understand that it is an addiction, a disease. They feel as if we've done something to them or at them and completely disregarded their needs and their feelings. And in fact, we do step on them a lot. So they need counseling, they need help and support. And for those folks, there's a 12-step program called Gam-Anon, there's therapy, and then of course family therapy to keep the family together, hopefully. I've heard people say, if somebody is an alcoholic and they drink, people understand that. If they're a drug addict and they continue to take their drug when they're trying to quit, that's understandable. But with gambling, we're not ingesting anything into our body. So it would seem like, just stop. Nobody has a gun to your head. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. Nobody has a gun to your head. Just stop. We have no free will. When you get to the level of a pathological gambler, which is what I qualify for as, there is no free will and no choice. I'd like people to know that it doesn't always have to be that way. if you're suffering from a gambling addiction, if somebody you know is struggling with a gambling addiction, there's help. And I would pray that you would not take that ultimate decision that so many gamblers do, which is suicide. Compulsive gamblers have the highest suicide rate of any group. And the family may not even know they're suffering. They may not even know the shame and pain they're feeling. So I'd like people to know help is available, it works, and that the first step is to admit there's a problem, to get honest, and to get into a recovery program.